The 49ers offseason started slow. It started painfully, but over time it picked up. And now on the other side of it, we could say the 49ers have had a firm offseason. We're going to talk about it all here on a new Sprint Ride Option podcast.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners. Sprint Ride Option podcast. My goodness, we are live. We are back. It is a new episode of the Sprint Ride Option podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Pasquini, joined as always by the other host, not co-host. We're both full-time hosts of this podcast, Jason Aponte. And Jason, let me be the first to say, I missed you, buddy. I feel like a lot of Niner things happened in my 2 weeks off that I didn't get a chance to talk about. And I'm very excited to get a chance to talk about those things with none other than Jason Aponte.
Well, that's what happens when you jet set and you want to, be away from the States and everything. I'm not sure if you know Andrew was across the world. Across the country sounds fun, but across the world, it's just, it's giving rich baby daddy.
I wasn't rich baby daddy enough because I could not afford the 1.2 million yen Niners leather jacket I sent the group chat. Really wanted it. Didn't have the 8,000 American dollars to spare for it. So I'm not that rich, but yeah, dude, Tokyo was I don't want to be like generic or cliche, but it was life-changing, man. It's so different out there. People minded themselves. It's so quiet, but like busy. It was a trip, man. It was a good time, but I'm excited to be back. I'm excited because now we're getting, Jason, we're fully getting away from what we call hypothetical football, and we're slowly rolling into football on the field. So I'm getting excited to get back into it all.
Yeah, for sure. I think the most disappointing part of your trip, and I don't want to speak for you, but you and I have constant conversations. When you buy a Cowboy Carter vinyl,
ooh, yes,
and Spaghetti is not on the vinyl, which is easily the hardest record on that album. I don't know what went into that. I don't know why that happened, but that broke my heart for you to find that out.
There's three other songs missing from it too. Yaya's not on there. I don't know what happened with it, but yeah, shout out Tower Records and Shibuya. Went to that. You would love that store, Jason. It was 8 stories tall. Each story was a different genre of music, a different type of thing. We took the dive into the vinyls finally, so I got my whole record set up here. Yeah, man, Beyonce, Cowboy Carter, you should listen to the album. Maybe not the vinyl because it is missing a few good songs. Vinyl's still pretty good. I like to look at it too, let's just say, but it's a great album.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a little bit disappointing. But other than that, everything that was going on with the 49ers was actually positive while you were gone, right? I don't really see too many negatives. Do you want to start with the really big news? The 49ers have a new punter.
Oh yes, Thomas Morstead. That was one of the big shocks of my trip. I didn't expect to wake. I think I woke up, 7 a.m., which means it's 16 hours ahead of West Coast time, so I'm a little off. That was some weird news. I didn't expect Mitch Wishnowsky to not be on the 49ers come 2025. I didn't think that would be a headline, but the 49ers replaced him with Thomas Morstead, and it's almost, not to kick a grave a little bit, but it's almost like that's how you should find your kickers and specialists, is by just scourging free agency and finding somebody with experience, as opposed to using a 5th round pick in the case of Mitch Wishnowsky. Nothing against Wishnowsky. He had some very fun memories. I'll never forget when he had that big hit in the preseason game against the Denver Broncos, his very first season. Still wish there was more knuckle punts. I've been waiting for that knuckle punt. It seemed he only broke it out once. It seemed like the only times he would break out the knuckle punt is when it forced a muff. That was the only time it would work. Never used it outside of that. But yeah, no, listen, Wishnowsky was a fun little Niner, but at the end of the day, I think the Niners are realizing their priorities a little bit better, especially with how big of a bill they're footing for 3 extensions that have happened in the past 3 weeks, right? They go cheap on punter, but they get a veteran experienced guy, and I can't really complain about it outside of Wishnowsky being a 5th round pick.
I think a lot of you are expecting me to laugh and dance on the grave, but I think the back issue was far worse than people were. So they needed a punter regardless. Like, this wasn't necessarily the 49ers waking up and saying, hey, let's go cheaper at punter. Now, you can connect the dots. Obviously, the joke that we're going to keep throwing around here is San Francisco Jets, because the special teams coordinator has completely cleaned house. The 49ers have brought in almost every – if you were in a phone booth or if you were in an elevator with Robert Saleh, you're probably going to be called to be a 49er. But I do think it just signals that the back injury was far worse than what we assumed and what we thought. And the 49ers just had to make a move. Again, I hated the pick when it happened. That's fine. But I do think that the injury pushed their hand a little bit more, rather than it being the 49ers saying, you know what, man, let's just get a little bit cheaper here. I do think that had a lot more to do with it. I know everybody wanted me to get my jokes off, but I'm not going to get jokes off when an injury causes someone to not be able to play anymore.
Yeah, and the back injury obviously affected him. He missed second half of the season. It's a bummer when it happens like that. But I mean, it's mixed with bad timing, because maybe if they have the same special teams coordinator, maybe he gets another chance in camp. But now was the right time to make the flip. And as I said, the positive is they got a veteran guy. Jason, let's talk about the real former Jets player that everybody wants to hear us talk about. The 49ers. I was yes.
There's a lot of we can get a lot of jokes off here, but I know where you're going. Go ahead.
A lot of former Jets to talk about, but no, let's talk about the big one in the news right now. The Eagles have traded defensive end Bryce Huff to the San Francisco 49ers for a 2026 mid-round draft pick. That came out today. It was officially announced today. Actually, it's pending physical still as well. Jonathan Jones reports a trade compensation update. It's a 2026 conditional fifth-round pick that can turn into a fourth, conditions tied to performance, all pending physical. Jason, I know a lot of people with the 49ers, they like to look at last year's numbers and what can you do for me now. And Bryce Huff's not going to give you the most stellar of numbers last season, 2.5 sacks in 12 games, only 6 games started. But that wasn't a Vic Fangio defense. And where the former New York Jets thing comes into this is Huff obviously played for the Jets for the first 4 seasons of his career, some with Robert Saleh. Don't know if you've heard, Jason, Robert Saleh is the 49ers' new defensive coordinator. Don't know if you've heard that at all on social media. But his last year with the Jets, he had 10 sacks, got him a good contract with the Eagles. And I think people see that 2024 number, but the way I look at it is the 49ers have a pass rusher with a pulse on the roster behind Nick Bosa, because before the Bryce Huff trade, the number 2 pass rusher on the 49ers, Mykel Williams, and we love Mykel Williams on this podcast, but he's more of a project for a pass rusher right now, and he's not somebody you could really rely on in 2020. If you could get something out of him as a pass rusher in 2025, fantastic, but can't necessarily rely on him. So the 49ers go out and get another pass specialist. I think the term is NASCAR. I got to rebrush up on the Robert Saleh lingo from 4 years ago, but I believe the term is the NASCAR package, where we're going to get those 2 pass rushers. I think Mykel Williams is still going to be your 2-down back or your 2-down rusher. Bryce Huff coming on 3rd down. So I like the move. It's no bad move to me, because it adds a position the 49ers absolutely needed, a pass rusher. Yes, the production could have been better in 2024, but he was also fighting an injury. But overall, I just think this is a good move, because the Niners just needed a body at pass rusher.
Well, when you think about the roles that needed to be left, that were left to be filled on this defensive line, the situational pass rusher was one that was sticking out over and over, right? And you want to have these guys learn on the fly, which is what you're going to do with Alfred Collins, CJ West, and Mykel Williams. By the way, I don't think Mykel Williams is coming off the field on the NASCAR package. I think if I was going to make a guess at it right now, Bosa, Mykel, Yetur, Gross Models, and Huff, and you'll move those 2 guys inside and have the 2 edge guys, because they can both play inside, outside. That versatility is going to be very much leaned on in these spots. But yeah, and then when you take into the account how much the 49ers are going to pay of his contract, the Eagles are paying this much. Well, the skeptic or the the negative pundit would say, well, why would the Eagles pay that much money? He can't be that good. It's not about that. It's about moving on and everything as well, too. And when you bring up the Vic Fangio defense, obviously we know it very well, 3-4, not 4-3. Those things are, he has to have his hand in the ground. And when you think about wide 9, he's had a bunch of wide 9 rushes under Robert Saleh. When you think about this move and then you think about what's being offered, it's a 5th-round conditional pick. Mm-hmm. And if he performs, it's a 4th-round pick. I think this is a swing for the fences. It doesn't necessarily knock your socks off from a name perspective, right? And let's be clear, very very many people wanted Joey Bosa, but if you were putting Joey Bosa and Bryce Huff in front of me and gave me a choice, it would be Bryce Huff 10 out of 10 times, given that he's 27. Even if he is coming off an injury, Joey Bosa's already hurt. This move just screams like, we understand what we needed. This was the final piece. I feel far better about this defensive line than I did, even when I was optimistic with all the new people. I think this is a perfect move, and the 49ers have kind of been chasing that sort of speed rusher since D Ford left, and now they seem to have filled that role, and who better to fill it with than the defensive coordinator who was the defensive coordinator for D Ford. This move just has no negatives right now. I know everything isn't always rosy, and it shouldn't always be positive, but just from an analysis standpoint, and before we get into actually playing football, how can you not like this move from a money standpoint? The 49ers still have all their picks next year, and when you think about the upside, what is the downside of this move? I love it. I think this is exactly what the 49ers needed. I wanted Zadarius Smith. I wanted maybe Von Miller. Those guys are older. Give me the younger guy with the higher upside who has proven his track record. And by the way, a down season for Huff last year still had his pressure rate near 20%. So, yes, you can say, hey, there was a bunch of snaps that he didn't play, or he didn't play many snaps. But when he was on the field, even misfit in a scheme like that, he still produced. You got to expect that to continue, and you have to expect that to go up, given the fact that Robert Saleh is going to be there and he's going to be around, a system that he's very familiar with.
Yeah, and this isn't a Leonard Floyd type move. This isn't a Chase Young type move. This is more of an Arden Key type move, right? It's not going to pop your socks off reading it. The name isn't exactly the highest tier of name to get. Zadarius Smith, the names. Jadeveon Clowney was one I liked, right? He's available still. Von Miller, obviously a big name, but what Bryce Huff does give you is he is a player who's gotten double-digit sacks in a season. The Niners could absolutely use that across from Nick Bosa, because if you pencil in Nick Bosa for double digits himself, which you should be able to do, and then you get Bryce Huff on the other side with, I mean, even like 8.5, 9 sacks, doesn't have to be double digits. I think that's a positive signing, and it's not asking for a ton. Even if it's in the lower 5, 6 area, it's still some production from a player who was a low risk move, right? Again, the contract with the Eagles was high. It was notable, but again, this move doesn't get made if that contract doesn't come down a little bit, and the 49ers did a good job of that. So I don't expect it to be the splashiest move, but there is a ceiling to it, right? He is 27. Jason, you mentioned that multiple times now. He's young. We've seen this type of pass rusher develop in this system, especially with Chris Kocurek, and especially with Chris Kocurek and Robert Saleh. Again, his best year was with Saleh as the head coach of the Jets. So there's a lot to like. Again, I'm sure people want that higher end guy across from Nick Bosa. Obviously, that hasn't worked as well. Nobody's really worked. It's either they don't work or they work out too well to where they play themselves into a better contract. I think Bryce Huff is kind of that good middle ground where he can play into it. And I believe he has 2 years left on his contract. So they can hold on to him for at least another year if it works out. So I love this move. It's a move that's going to kind of fly under the radar. But come October, November, when we're talking about, wow, this Niners pass rush looks real good, it's going to be because of this move.
Yeah, and again, every role is filled now, and it doesn't get in the way and impede the process of developing Mykel Williams. And I think that's really important as well, too, to note, is this isn't someone who is going to take Mykel Williams off the field. To the contrary, they're actually going to be working together on these third down runs. And again, don't worry about whether Bryce Huff can stop the run. He's not going to be there on base downs. That's, again, I made the funny joke on Twitter about, you wouldn't ask a plumber to fix your roof. I don't understand why you want somebody who's a pass rusher, a situational pass rusher, why you need him there on base downs when you have Wes Collins, Mykel, and Bosa, who will be the primary base down guys and the ones tasked with stopping the run to allow the third down, situations to come to fruition. But again, there's no negatives here in this move. And if he does play well and you have to give a higher pick, that just means that the defense played well, and that's good. And he had a really good year. So there's no negatives here, honestly. I think it's a win-win for both teams. There was some weird victory lapping from Eagles about like, we fleeced the night. What did you fleece? There was no fleecing of anything, right? Like, just because Howie Roseman farted doesn't mean that it smells like roses, right? Like, it doesn't make sense for you to just continuously praise Howie Roseman, even though he is a fine general manager, clearly a Super Bowl champion Eagles. But this works out for both. Like, this is a business deal, and this is a business deal at the end of the day that worked out for the Eagles and the 49ers. Nobody won. anything. But if you're looking at what the 49ers gained, they gained that situational pass rusher that they desperately needed. I didn't think they were going to go into training camp with just the line the way they had it assembled. I just figured it would be somebody who was going to be a veteran pass rusher, somebody like that, but it wasn't. And it's somebody who's a little bit younger with more upside who actually knows Robert Saleh's system. Robert Saleh, comparing him to Mariano Rivera, the closer, you got to like that, for, the two Yankee fans that are Yankee fans like me.
Hey man, there's a lot of Yankee fans that listen to this podcast because of Jason Aponte. They love the Yankee hype. But Jason, I think the big thing with this move as well is I think you can officially say that every loss, I'm not going to say has been equally filled, right? I'm not going to sit here and say Nick Martin's going to be the second coming of Dre Greenlaw, but every loss has been filled at this point, right? You lose Leonard Floyd, you replace him with Mykel Williams and Bryce Huff, right? It's a combination thing. You lose both of your interior defensive linemen, Alfred Collins, CJ West drafted. Nick Martin's going to step in for Dre Greenlaw. We'll see how that works out. Talanoa Hufanga, Marcus Siegel, he'll step in, right? And then the secondary gets solved within itself with Diamador Lenore probably playing more outside cornerback to replace Charvarius Ward's spot. And then you draft Upton Stout to take the slot. So all the big positions have been filled. Now, whether or not you're going to get that same level of production, I don't know, right? That's something the season will tell us. But at least on paper and the defensive side of the ball, the spot's been filled. Offense is going to be a little different, right? You don't know when Brandon Ayuk's going to come back. You don't know how you're going to replace Deebo Samuel naturally because of the role he played in the offense. The 49ers have tried to replace it with draft picks, right? They get DeMarcus Robinson, they draft Jordan Watkins. So the offensive side may be a little tougher to replace, but defensive side of the ball, the spots have been filled out. So going into it, as of June 2nd, 2025, Jason Aponte, how do you feel the 49ers kind of address those holes that were lost via free agency or via trade?
Well, it's funny because John Lynch said we had a plan, and we're like, yeah, like the cynical 49ers fan is like, yeah, sure, you have a plan. Well, they do, and they did. And I think the only way to really look at this right now is just how did they fill these spots? Did they fill them with players who can return value right away? And then we can assess what the plan looked like when the games go on, when the pads go on and, everybody starts, pads start popping. For now, all of these things seem to be addressed with players. We're just going to find out how this is going to look. But when you look back at the defense last year, and especially on the defensive line, the 49ers kind of were robbing Peter to pay Paul in certain ways. Javon Hargrave, not a run defender. Okay, he's a pass rusher. Okay, well, now he's not pass rushing. Malik Collins, pass rusher, not on rundowns. Jordan Elliott, run stuffer, not. And it was one or the other, right? You didn't have players that can do both. I think the goal here is for Collins and West to develop as, pass rushers and being able to get more from them. Same thing with Mykel Williams. But when you're talking about this rotation, you feel far better about this defensive line rotation, given that Sammy O is going to be here. Evan Anderson has been very good, in his limited time. Now you have your third down guy who's going to be fresh and ready to end drives on third down only, which is another thing. He's just going to be fresh the entire time. And that's the way that you're kind of building this inside out. And it just really, really is apparent that Robert Saleh has his fingerprints all over this team's construction from the draft to who they're bringing in. And I think it goes hand in hand with the fact that the 49ers know that they need to fix their defense, but also being desperate to have Robert Saleh there and being happy to have him there because they've dealt with, Wilkes and Sorensen and had, whatever results. Obviously with Wilkes, they got close to winning a Super Bowl. So maybe we should, ease up a little bit off of that. But at the same time, it all kind of makes sense right now. So you have to be somewhat optimistic given the holes that are filled, how you filled them. And now we just have to figure out where the development is and how quickly it'll take this team and this defense, especially the rookies, to get up to speed and how their bumps and bruises go. I don't think we've seen 49ers players kind of learn on the fly. It's almost either especially on defense, you either got it or once you start struggling, you're out. Like, we're not going to allow you to go up and down. So I think, I think this is the only way to really look at it, and you just have to wait for the games to start before you can really assess where this plan was.
Yeah, and the 49ers was shown that they know the superstar portion of their rosters filled out, right? They have the superstars, but unfortunately they've learned out the hard way that superstars don't necessarily win Super Bowls. So now it feels like they're filling out the rest of the roster, right? The head guys are filled, right? Purdy gets his extension. We talked about that before I left. Kittle gets an extension. Warner gets his extension over the past couple of weeks. You have Nick Bosa still. You have Brandon Ayuk. You still have George Kittle, right? All these guys, Christian McCaffrey, and I know some injuries are pending, but now it finally feels like that middle tier of the roster is like filling out, and that's what the Niners have missed the past couple of years. Is it really felt like they had the higher end guys. Diamador Lenore is another one. I can't forget about him. But they didn't quite have that, like the middle part of the roster filled out. And now it feels with this offseason. And yes, this hinges on a lot of rookie play, which is kind of what 2024 did as well. It worked out in 2024 with the rookie play. Unfortunately, there was a lot of injuries around the working of the rookie play that hindered the Niners. So now you hope that, and Gojira says it here, everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face or when injuries mount. Ideally, the 49ers avoid that injury bug this year, right? And you're sitting there with Brock Purdy staying fully healthy and the best version of Brandon Ayuk you can get, which I don't know what that looks like right now with all the injuries he's coming off of. But now that middle tier of the roster is filled out. And if the Niners can get anything that resembles the 2024 rookie class in the 2025 class, and the key pieces stay healthy, like you can't have Fred Warner playing 2 months and then being like, oh, by the way, I broke my ankle against the Patriots, kind of sucks. You don't want that, obviously. You don't want any injury. I mean, talk about a team we'll talk about here in a second with the Detroit Lions. They got bit by the injury bug last season quite a bit. You saw what that did to their team in the playoffs. The Niners have the top tier players that not a lot of teams have. They just have to find that middle area, and the pieces are there, Jason. The pieces are very much there in that middle area. It just comes down to, is Mykel Williams a hit? Is CJ West, Alfred Collins a hit? Is Upton Stout NFL ready? I think he is because of his film against, I'm sure I've talked about it here before, but Upton Stout film against Alabama, they lose that game 42-0. But if you tell me there's one Western Kentucky player on defense that belonged on the field with Alabama, it would be Upton Stout because his speed was up there with the faster guys of Alabama. So like there's a lot of risk. Yes, that's absolutely what this is. There's a lot of risk here. That's what happens when you're trying to fill out that middle area. If the Niners can get something that resembles the 2024 young guys, they got something cooking. And now all the big guys are under contract for the next 3-4 years. I don't want to say the Super Bowl window's wide open right now because 2024 can absolutely happen again. I'm not sitting here saying it won't, but it's set up to where if the Niners hit on this draft, things are set up for the next 3-4 years.
And that's what the Rams and Bills did, right? Like we've heard this is the blueprint of extending the window and using rookies and everything. I think the only thing that was really the one thing that I wondered about was the general manager, who's now the general manager of the Jaguars, talking about we didn't want to sign any veteran guys because we wanted guys to have bumps and bruises and go through their things, and they were fine with that. But that's exactly what the Rams did. The Rams, by all accounts, were cooked, right, dead in the water. And you know what? They went right in the draft, end up with Braden Fisk, get Jared Verse. Now you're back in the saddle, right? Again, like so. The 49ers are hoping for similar, results, and obviously, the Bills and the Rams. Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, very good quarterbacks, clearly. But I think they believe they have that with Brock Purdy, too. And I think we believe that as well. So I think if we're talking about what the 49ers needed to improve, yes, the 49ers offense will have to do some of the heavy lifting, but you believe in that, obviously, because you have Kyle Shanahan. How could you not? And then you have a defense that picks it up just a little bit more. Then you're starting to get back there. But again, injuries happen. There's, the fear of the unknown. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen. But for right now, I see the vision, and I think that's the only way we can really look at it is the vision is clear. Now this looks like it's rounding into shape, and now we're rolling aside from a few injuries. Obviously, we hear Ricky Pearsall, hamstring injury is going to be out, so camp. Jair Brown, ankle. Now what happens is safety. But it doesn't seem like those injuries are too severe that it's going to bleed into the season. But, for all intents and purposes, the 49ers are rolling with everything going in the right direction. And how many off seasons can we say that that's been possible? I don't even think during the time when the 49ers were competing for every single NFC championship or trying to get to the Super Bowl, those off seasons went as smooth as this one. It's a nice little change. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and we were only really talking about the offense and defense, but how many times has the special teams cost the Niners games? And, I don't want to say they're guaranteed to be better than last season, but with all these changes, a new coordinator, a lot of changes on the personnel side of it, you're almost comfortable saying it has to be. If it's boy, oh boy, I can't wait for these podcasts if we're sitting here saying it's worse than what it was in previous years, but it almost has to be better. So there are steps being made that, yes, they aren't clear, massive steps, right? They didn't go out and trade for Max Crosby or Myles Garrett like a lot of people wanted it, and I was one of them. Like I'm not going to sit here and say I wasn't, because that sounds all fine and dandy, but the Niners did what they could with what they had, and ultimately I think they were successful. The 2025 season is going to tell us otherwise if it wasn't, but I really like what they did with this offseason, especially with how it started. It felt like after all the names were lost, right, it was going to be tough to overcome it. But it feels like the draft picks were used well. Free agency was used as well as you could have. Obviously, there's some signings here and there that are a little questionable, but we'll find out how those actually look when the season starts. But overall, I would give this a solid like B plus offseason for the 49ers before we really get into the camp, barring any other crazy move, which I don't know if I saw Bryce Huff necessarily happening, but maybe they make another move here and there that even strengthens it. But I'm in the B plus area just because of the names lost, but how they replaced them.
And think about how this offseason started. Oh my God, they lost this player. Oh my God, they lost this player. And then everyone just assumed that the 49ers were going to be running out there like Evan Anderson and Sammy O next to Nick Bosa, and how things change quickly, right? Like, then you start to see the vision in the draft, and, all those signings that, I guess the biggest signing was what? Mac Jones, Luke Farrell, Jason Pinnock, who might have to play now, based on how long Malik Mustafa is going to be out, what's going on with Jair Brown. Like, yeah, those are fine. But, when you have the anchors, when you have the high end talent, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, when you have those guys, Fred Warner, everything else becomes a little bit easier to round out a roster with, because no matter what, 49ers fans, no matter what you think about this regime, whatever you think about this offseason, you know how many teams would kill to have their core be Trent Williams, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Fred Warner. They would literally give whatever they could to have those guys be their core. The rest was the 49ers figuring out the rest. But from the beginning of this offseason to why aren't they signing anybody and they let this guy go and oh my God, what are they doing, to this, it's been a really fun ride to watch it go from outright panic at times to, okay, now I feel good about this. And you know what? Again, John Lynn said he had a plan. They executed the plan pretty well, I think. And I have to give them kudos. And I even have to give Parag Marate and Jed York kudos, because none of these contract extensions are lingering. Everything is fine right now, and it's just a weird place to be in because the 49ers offseason's never this smooth.
Yeah, it's been. I think that's also the best part of this offseason is all the deals are done. There's no drama of training camp holdouts or nothing like that. It's just going to be a normal summer until preseason starts. Jason, about halfway through, good time to remind the people, subscribe to Jason Aponte's YouTube channel if you haven't already. A lot of great content. Show with Brian Peacock, show with Steph Sanchez, show with Brad Graham, show with Rob Stats Guerrera. A lot of people that on this channel. Pop a like for this video. If you like the Sprint Option Right Option podcast, we love you. I hope you love us as equal as we love you. So that totally made sense, Jason. I'm great at these ad reads. A great time to run through just some comments we missed. Gojira, hey, Andrew moved out of his living room. I guess I haven't been paying attention. No, I'm still in the same living room. Jackie Daytona's right there. I just added a shelf. Thank you for noticing. I was very happy to finally get some sort of background behind me after 5 years of no backgrounds on this podcast, fixing things. Next thing we got to fix is the Trey Lance intro, which, by the way, if you know how to do that stuff, let us know. I'll pay you. I'll pay you.
Keep the song.
I'll pay you in Japanese yen or American dollars. Don't care. I'll get you taken care of.
Would you be interested in a Cowboy Carter vinyl that does not have the hardest record on it?
That too. Jesse needed the in-depth. Huff can bend the edge. It's a great pickup. Could still add another before the trade deadline or during. That's another good point, right? There's still the trade deadline and all that. Who's going to be available? Raymond, I think the fact that Huff knows he's a pass rush specialist and familiarity with Solid makes this a great trade. Yeah, I think that's a key thing too, right? They know their role. That's a very important thing to have going into a game. It's almost like the Yankees and the same batting order every day, right? Like what you're doing when you step into the lineup every day. I think that was a couple years ago where the Yankees had like 3 different starting lineups. Maybe I'm forgetting it. Jason, am I using the Yankees incorrectly? Baseball stupid. Continuing. Looking forward to Martin versus Winters battle for a weak side linebacker. And then Dusty Gold, been an advocate for D Winters, having a good camp so far. Fast in coverage, but must show downhill run stopping ability. I think the Niners need a little bit of that in everybody, right? Last year, the run game was not very good. And we're going to finish off with Gojira because this is kind of our next topic, talking about teams around the 49ers. Lions are having a nightmare offseason. I mentioned the Lions with their injuries on defense last year. Massive coaching staff turnover, and now their center retires. This slate could fall hard this year. And that's kind of the topic now, Jason. We talk about how good of an offseason the 49ers have had. I don't feel like anybody in the NFC has particularly gotten stronger, right? The Eagles, I think, naturally got a little weaker. I still think they're the best team in the NFC, not trying to take anything from them.
Washington.
But we've seen the Niners. Washington's gotten a little bit stronger, whether you want to consider them a threat to the Niners. And yeah, we could absolutely have that conversation. I think they are. But in terms of the top tier, I think you look at the Lions, who today Frank Ragnow retires starting center for them for 7 years. I know he had some injury issues, but he was part of a very important offensive line. The Lions also losing Ben Johnson to the Chicago Bears, which may be a team we could talk about here in a bit. So the Lions feel like they might take a drop off from last year just based off of the I guess the vibes thing for the Niners last offseason. I guess you could say vibes could be low for the Lions right now. Less drama definitely than the Niners the past couple of years. But Jason, kind of seeing the Niners spot in the NFC, I think they've had a very solid offseason. I feel like you mentioned Washington having a good offseason. Is there anybody really around that you feel like has taken as great of stride, not as great as strides, but feeling like they have had as good of an offseason as the 49ers have through the final month here of the free agency?
Well, final month, I wouldn't say that anybody has, but I would say overall, I think the Chicago Bears have done the best that they can, right? You bring in Ben Johnson, you fix up that offensive line, you end up with Colston Loveland. Like, they're loaded, right? Like, this is the idea. But going back to the Lions, that division is an absolute bloodbath.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Lions, the Packers, the Bears, and the Vikings. My goodness, there could be 3 teams from that division that are going to make the playoffs. But the Lions thing is a little concerning just because this is going to be the first time that we're going to see Dan Campbell without Ben Johnson. You know, the Frank Ragnow thing, it's got to come as like a blow to the stomach to them because he's 29 years old and he's so good. Probably one, if not one of the best, if, you know, whatever. You feel like Creed Humphrey's better. You feel like somebody else. Okay, but he's up there. And Aaron Glenn leaving, you know, defensive coordinator, right? Like, there's going to be a big overhaul. If you're predicting a team that is going to have a step back, how could you not look at the Lions right now and say it's going to be them, right? So that's really interesting. Now, having said that, I don't think that the Lions are going to fall off the face of the earth or anything like that. But it does feel like, and I had a conversation with a 49ers fan yesterday in my hometown, go figure, and he said it feels like the Lions' ceiling was that championship game against the 49ers, right? Where, you know, like they may never get back there. And that was their chance right there. So when you put all that into effect, obviously they've hired qualified coaches and they feel competent about like what's going to go forward. But losing Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, I don't think we should gloss over that. And then you throw in this Frank Ragnow thing, that really is bad. But if you're saying who had the best offseason in the NFC, I probably got to give the nod to the Chicago Bears. Having said that, they're the Chicago Bears, and it doesn't matter what they do, that's correct, you know, so eventually, you know, things might just come out the other way. But I think, again, all we're doing is just talking about who they brought in. They've got massive weapons. Their offensive line's much better. For all intents and purposes, they believe Caleb is the guy. You know, you feel good about the Bears. But Washington, you know, getting Laramie Tunsil and you know, Deebo Samuel and having a very good draft as well, too. How could you not look at them? And I think we all agree in the NFC, you know, you have to say this out loud. The Philadelphia Eagles are tier 1, and everybody else is fighting for whatever the spot is behind them going into the season. But I would say Washington and Chicago, and if I had to give the nod, I would probably say Chicago based on the fact that they brought in Ben Johnson, who's supposed to be, you know, the next offensive guy.
Yeah, and if you do the early math, very early to really be worrying about it, Jason. But you said, you know, potentially 3 teams coming out of the NFC North, because that's going to be a tough division no matter how you cut it. Even if they get 2 teams, you got to assume the Eagles and the Commanders are coming out of the NFC East in the playoffs. So if there's 2 teams in the North, 2 teams in the East, that leaves 3 teams for 2 divisions, which leaves 1 division with just a single division winner in the playoffs. And it really comes down to, are the 49ers the best team in the NFC West? And that's a tough question to answer because of last season, right? The NFC West was there for the taking. The 49ers couldn't take it. The Rams are going to be good. I think we're just at a point where until Matthew Stafford retires, I know they lost Cooper Kupp, but they replace him with Devontae
Or
Adams,
Sean McVay goes away.
or Sean McVay goes away. That's another one, right? And then the Seahawks, they're just kind of going to be pesky up there. Can Sam Darnold step in and be just as good, if not better, than Geno Smith? We saw what they could look like with Geno Smith last year. Maybe they're better. So now it really comes down to, are the 49ers good enough to win the NFC West? And I on paper, I think they are, right? You can't go against a team. I mean, if you really want to make the comparison of if 2023 was 2019, 2024 was 2020, well, the Niners rolled off into 3 consecutive NFC West after that, right? So just because last year was a down year doesn't mean this year necessarily has to be the same. And I think this is a division that, while there are some tough teams, like Cardinals exist, right? They're always a big what if in the NFC West. I don't feel like I trust them enough, but they're also there. It's going to be an interesting year in the NFC West, as it always is. And did the Niners do enough to come out on top? Because that's really the safest way to, I mean, it is the safest way to make the playoffs, just win your division. And I think the Niners are at the talent level where you can say, yes, they are division winners, despite how good the Rams and Seahawks are going to be, or might be. So I think that's what this offseason was really about, is maybe not necessarily establishing yourselves as a NFC contender, which the Niners can be, right? Nothing against it, but it's, again, to be the top team in the NFC West. And I think they've built this roster to be that pretty easily.
Yeah, for sure. And how do you do that? You take advantage of the schedule. You close out games with your defense, and you assume that, again, last year I believe the 49ers were 1-6 in one-score games. If that number even levels off to 3-3, right, or 3-4, right, like it's an improvement, and it'll certainly help them. And then how many games did they kick away for special teams? It's a lot of that's going in there. Again, we're all just talking about hypotheticals right now. We're not going to know until what teams are, until the lights turn on and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to feel good about this. But it definitely feels like, if you're talking about the NFC hierarchy, whatever it is, right, like that you're looking at, it has to be Philly, Washington, and then do you think the Lions? Do you think the Vikings? Do you think like one of those teams? But it would probably be those two teams. So it's interesting that the NFC East has the two best teams probably going into this season in their division. And playoff spots are going to be scarce. So, we always say it, win your division and everything else works out. But there may not be wildcard spots to go around, based on how good some of these divisions are. And if the Bears take a leap, who knows what's going to happen? And it could be a situation where there's 3 wildcard teams from that actual division. And the 4th team wouldn't even necessarily be bad. They would just be on the outside looking in, because there's only a certain amount of spots that they can play.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Niners line up in the NFC, because they do play some of those. I know the schedule's nice, but they do have the Bears, right? They have some of those tougher NFC games, and obviously the 6 NFC West games, and that'll go a long way in deciding who the 49ers are. But Jason, you got to feel good. I feel good right now. It's June. If you don't feel good about your football team, I'm sorry. I don't know what world you live in, but I feel pretty good about the 49ers. And I just want to talk to you about the last couple of weeks with the 49ers, because I was gone. If there was any thoughts I should know, anything I missed. I know Kittle signs his extension. Warner signs his extension. How do you feel about those moves, Jason? I'm going to assume you feel pretty good about them. I know you've talked about them a lot already, since they're a little older, but as I said, I was in Tokyo. I was waking up when everybody was going to bed, and I didn't get to follow the live reactions to let's be honest, massive signings, because not only are they Niners for the next couple of years, but now you're really getting closer to the forever Niner terminology, where they might be Niners for the rest of their career. So from that standpoint as well, Jason, how do you feel about the Kittle and Warner extensions?
Never a doubt. The Warner thing, I never even worried about for half a second. When you hear him go to the podium say, I made a lot of money, and they'll work it out. Fred Warner wasn't going anywhere. George Kittle wasn't going anywhere. Wasn't really worried about that. I think once the Purdy extension comes down, now you're not worried about anything. Because that was the one that you felt like was the one that could, bleed into training camp. You never felt like this George Kittle Warner thing was going to be like that, but it all fell into place. Of course, you feel great about that. Again, the 49ers have the best tight end, the best linebacker in football on their team. And, maybe Trent Williams isn't the best left tackle anymore, because, certain people have played more games, but you have a top end guy that way. Again, people would kill for that type of core, and the 49ers weren't going to let him go.
Okay, yeah, I'd say I like that's how I felt too, and I think there's a little more drama with the Kittle than the Warner, but that's because some reports kind of got leaked that teams are calling about Kittle, which
It's been a
I
rough
think
offseason for Diana Rossini.
I love Diana Rossini, but
It's
just
too
just
Jersey native.
not great. I enjoy listening to her on Scoop City. It's always fun to hear her talk, but not great when it came to the Niners on accuracy. Which I think it's bound to happen. It happens to Schefter. It happens to
Well,
everybody. Things change and all that.
the other
But
thing is too is she was leaking that the tush push was going to be
yep.
abolished, and
That
yeah,
what do you
so
think about that?
it's just like, man, like this is a few of these calls in a row that have just been
Mhm.
wrong, unfortunately.
Well,
And hey, look, it happens. It definitely
mhm.
happens. But I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's been a rough offseason for Rossini.
What do you think about the tush push and all that? I was a little disappointed that the 49ers were on team ban.
Uh-huh.
I was very proud of the 10 teams who voted to keep it. I don't
Mhm.
think it I know people want to say like the injury thing, but there's no
There's
injury
no
thing really
correlation.
connected to it. And to me, man, it just should not. I don't like the idea of punishing a play because one team does it better than others. Now, on the flip side, I will give Green Bay some credit. I think it's kind of soft of them to want the play banned, but them referring to the former rule of like, hey, no offensive player can push an offensive player, that at least gives it some credence, right? Because it was
Mhm.
a former rule where offensive players couldn't push each other. Jason, I don't know if we've ever had the conversation. Are you side ban tush push or you want to keep the tush push?
No, if you can't stop it, too bad, you know. So I don't think that it's something that should have been banned. On the flip side, if it would have been banned, I would have laughed my ass off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like I didn't want it to be banned, but if it was banned, I would have just been like, well, you know, so easy come, easy go, Eagles. Too bad, you know. All that means is that Saquon Barkley is going to get way more touchdowns. But yeah, nah, if you can't stop it, then don't cry about it. And you know, if the 49ers had an advantage in that way, you wouldn't want them to you know, take that away. So yeah, no. You don't ban the touch push. You just try to figure out a way to stop it or stop yourself from getting in 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, where that's, you know, exactly where the play is going to be.
That's just what's so funny to me about this whole tush push thing because in the NFL the past 10 years the pass has gotten more and more relevant and big plays, explosive plays are becoming more and more of what offenses are trying to do. And we're sitting here talking about banning a play that gains a team at most 3 yards, and we're talking about banning it because the Eagles are just really good at it. The Niners should try and do the push more. They just don't have the lack of better term, Jalen Hurts, the assets to do such, right? They don't have the players who will do that, but that's okay because it's what my joke that I tried to make on Twitter is that, well, the play the Eagles run where Saquon Barkley gains 60 yards and scores a touchdown, I think that's too overpowered. So they should ban that next. It gives them 6 points every time when he breaks out a big run. So ban that. I never liked the idea. I'm very happy the tush push is there. Although, not to sound like Diana Rossini, I think it's going to be something that gets revisited again next season.
Mhm.
And I could see there being more of a push, more of a tush push to get the tush push banned.
Yeah, and look at the team that was starting it. The Packers were in hell with that, right?
Mhm.
You know, and it is what it is. But yeah, again, you don't ban something that you can't stop. But if it would have got banned, I definitely would have laughed and
Yeah.
got my jokes off, you know. So I'd
Oh,
have
it
been like,
would have
Jalen
led
Hurts,
this
get ready to
podcast.
learn Walmart, buddy.
Trying to think if there's anything else that happened in the NFL in terms while I was gone, but it really was a quiet period. I mean, again, that's
Jim
what
Irsay.
Jim Irsay passed away, RIP to him, which pretty cool for the Indiana Pacers, especially with that momentum going on.
Oh man, yeah.
For that to be his last tweet and then to go
Mhm.
on and beat your New York Knicks, right, Jason?
My New York Knicks,
Your
don't
New
do
York
that.
Knicks. I know how much you
No,
love those
no,
videos and all that stuff.
no.
Um,
I like the reactions, but I'm not a Knicks fan. I just live here.
I'm gonna miss the Kylie Jenner, Timothy Chalamet videos, just because he's just he's got one of the most notable supermodels as his girlfriends, and he looked like us before the Super Bowl, just super stressed, super anxious because the Knicks are playing in an elimination game. Like I
Mhm.
love that stuff. Like that warms my heart to see that no matter how bad the girl is, like you're still like stressed about the 5 guys wearing the Knick uniforms in front of you. Like I love it. I love
And,
Timothy Chalamet. Only vibes going up from here for him.
and what's funny is, you know, she had the Met Gala, and he's like, I'm not going to that shit. The Knicks are playing, and he went to the Knicks game. Like I was just like, damn it, I love that. I love that, man. I'm not going to that. I don't want to go to that.
And Jason, one thing I'm actually writing on, and I want to get your idea. I thought not your thoughts. We've talked about it a little bit. These rivalries uniforms. The
Uh-huh.
Niners have been teasing a little bit. Where do you think the Niners go with it? Because I think they're gonna. I think my big guess right now is I think we're getting the chrome gold helmets. I think we're going to get an all chrome gold helmet out of this. I think that's what they've been teasing with their little what is it, a box that they open and like it's gold. That's the only thought I have on these. I don't want them to be gold uniforms. That's my biggest fear. But for those of you who don't know, the NFL Rivals uniform, a rivalries uniform, 8 teams are going to have them, the AFC East, the NFC West. They're going to wear them for one rivalry game every season, I think, for the next 3 years, whatever it is. I think they only have to wear it once in the next 3 seasons. The Niners have been teasing some sort of gold, something with it. Jason, do you have any fears with them, or are you just full-fledged just looking forward to it?
I just want to see what it is. If I had to make a guess, it would probably be a white jersey with like gold letters. I think that's really cool too. You know but you know, that can rub you one or two ways because those always seem like alternates that are like at the end of the rack in like Walmart or something like that in that area, you know, or a Target or something like that. It's still a really nice jersey, but I'm interested to see for sure. We did forget one thing that I do think we need to talk about, even if it's not 49ers news. It is NFL news though. Okay. Stephon Diggs being on a boat with Cardi B and a bunch of scantily clad women in the offseason and making Mike Vrabel have to say something about it and wondering if you're going to cut a guy in the offseason for, you know, God forbid a guy has hobbies, right, Andrew?
It's like who Haley Joel Osment got arrested for just being a guy having hobbies, right? Like that's just I apologize about the sirens in the background trying to mute my mic, but that's okay. Hey, they stopped when I apologized. Has anything had a harder death in the NFL than the Patriot way? Yes. I mean, you got this whole Bill Belichick Jordan thing going on with North Carolina, and now you have Mike Vrabel. Like you thought the Patriots brought him in because he was the embodiment of the Patriot way when he was a player, and now Stephon Diggs is doing things, not showing up to camp, whatever he's having a good time. That's I don't want to charge anybody for having a good time, but I just. Has the Patriot way it's like the trust the process. Did it ever exist? That did not, but the Patriot way definitely did, and that just has gone out the window in about 6 months here.
God forbid a guy has fun. Let's add that to the list of things that men can't do, right? No hobbies, no fun, nothing like that. Him and his girlfriend, they enjoy being on yachts with women and stuff like that. More power to them. They look like a lot of fun.
It looked like a good time, man. And you never know you don't know what pink powder is. I don't know what it could have been, the candy sticks, they were just having a good time.
Well, everything's legal in international waters. Like you just have to go, you have to go a little bit further out from Florida. And once you get out to a certain spot, you could have a monkey knife fight.
I'm happy boat conspiracy theories are back because I missed it. You remember when the New York Giants lost the playoff game?
Oh yeah, they still talk about that to this day around
on
here
a boat. They took one photo, and that's why they're cursed with Jackson Dart, I guess. I feel like having boat controversies is I'm excited for the 49ers to have a boat controversy one day, right? The Cabo squad, they're gonna have fun on a boat. Maybe the Niners is just them remaking I'm on a boat by Lonely Island. Feels like
we're off the rails. This is how you know the offseason is going too well when this is what we're talking about here at the end, honestly.
It sure is a hell lot better than like, hey, Brock Purdy asked for $65 million. The 49ers said 55. What do we do now? I'd rather be talking pink substances on Stephon Diggs' boat. Let's be 1,000% honest.
What's wrong with a little Tusi? Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I
have a natural transition for this. For talking what Stephon Diggs and Cardi B are doing on boats. You see Meg's Instagram the past like 3 days, man?
I have.
I just wanted the best sprint ride option podcast advertising there is the like area of a Megan Thee Stallion post. That's all I gotta say,
dude. And I don't know if you watch. You don't watch Last of Us or whatever, but we could have jumped into all that as well too or whatever. But no, I think honestly right now everything is just OTAs, everything, is moving in the right direction. You feel good about all that. Mini camps coming up. There'll be more videos and things like that popping up. there is a little bit of a concern with what the 49ers are doing with their training camp field and all that stuff. And I have a conspiracy theory that it's to keep content creators away from watching I'm being dead ass too. Like, it's to keep 49ers content creators from all over the country to fly in and give their opinions, right? And on what they saw. First of all, they wait till like literally 3 days before camp opens and they say, okay, these are the days. And, now everybody's scrambling to make flight plans. And now you're moving the field farther away. You're even moving it farther away from media members. You're not slick, 49ers. You just don't want to hear what other people have to say. And you just, that little group that you allow in there, you want their opinion and their opinion only. And you want to just keep everybody else out that people enjoy. And if you enjoy certain people and you enjoy others, whatever. But this is clearly them striking back against 49ers content creators. And they're not going to pull the wool over my eyes with this one. I know exactly what the fuck they're doing.
Wasn't I part of the problem? Didn't I accidentally do something? We were there. Oh, I took a video of Jimmy Garoppolo on the sideline when I don't think I technically was supposed to. I think the don't record signs were up, and I'm like, hey, Jimmy Garoppolo's here. And then I think 3 days later, or like a week later, they signed him to the extension that nobody saw coming. That was actually going to be one of my questions, Jason. I noticed that not only that, they haven't even announced the ticket sales. I feel like
they'll never do, but they won't until it's a few minutes, or a few days away from, they would never do it right now on June 2nd, because then everybody would just make their flight plans.
Earlier than I thought? I feel like maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're way earlier. It happens right before, like, that week. It happens like right before that week. And then the last thing that they do is that they've raised the prices so high for 15 sessions, 10 sessions, whatever it is, for fans to be there, just basically making it almost impossible for anybody to be there. But 49ers, you're not slick. I know exactly what you're doing, and it's fine. I'll just say I wasn't there at camp, but it's not going to stop me from getting on you if you're not going to play well this year. That none of that's going to change. So
yeah, I'm looking at tickets will go on sale Thursday, July 18th. The first day of camp last year was July 25th. So yeah, I am early. So you're right.
Yeah. And they do it that way, where it's just that week. And then everybody who's trying to come in from different parts of the country, because there's people in Connecticut, there's people here, there's people in Florida. Everybody wants to go and, add their original content to it. But you doing that right that close, it means that you're trying to stop them from being able to make those plans, because prices for flights exponentially go up when you're trying to, book it for a week or something like that. Like, it's just, I know exactly what you're doing. It's fine. I don't got to be there. It's cool. But just letting you know, I'm not easing up on you if you guys play like shit. I'm not lying.
Not going to complain because it's a donation, right? Like, I'm not complaining about charitable
that's how they frame it.
But I feel like the donation used to be $5 and now it's 20, or it was 20 last year. So it again, towards charity. So only positives on that. But yeah, it definitely feels like something that is tougher to attend than what it used to be. So we'll see as that comes out. Ideally, Jason, you and I get out there, because that's one of the days you and I hang out and have our fun out in the mean streets of Santa Clara, California.
San Jose.
We go to that burger joint that our good friend Jordan takes us to. I forget. I'm not going to say the name because I like our privacy. And I don't want the internet to be haunting us down, Jason.
Catch me at the Yard House on Santana Road. You already know what the fuck going on.
Yard House, sponsor us. We would love that. We love Yard House. I am a frequent at the one in Sacramento. I walk down there anytime I go to the Doco area. I'm a big Yard House guy. Hey, Jason, it was fun. This has been a fun offseason, man. I've been enjoying it. But again, we're slowly getting to the point of hypothetical football to real football. Practices are going to start. Rookie OTAs have already started, right? The players are on the field as we speak. But Jason, we're about 2 months away from the preseason, 3 months away from the regular season. It's getting to that time again, Jason. Year 6 of the Sprint Red Option podcast is coming. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to camps. I'm looking forward to preseason, all of it. I'm ready to get back into it.
Absolutely. And if you guys are here, we're streaming again on Twitter. Shout out to everybody that's watching on Twitter. It's jumping the numbers up. If you're new, if you're not, drop a like on here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow's Bully Ball, and we have a lot of other stuff going on as well too. But now we have things to actually talk about. There's going to be a little bit of a dead area, but for the most part, the content is going to continue. And always look out for that website that we write for, NinersNation.com. Did not come up with the name. Please stop yelling at us about it. And, you'll find Andrew and I writing there every single day.
I'll be writing some thoughts on the rivalries uniforms. They'll hopefully coming out tomorrow. I'll be comparing it to what the NBA or what Nike has done with NBA and MLB jerseys, and maybe we should be a little concerned about it. But that'll be on Niners Nation ideally tomorrow, maybe Wednesday. Jason Aponte, though, as always.
Let's go Niners. It's good to be back. Good to see you, Andrew.
Good to be back. Happy to be back. And again, reach out to us if you want to help us change this intro I'm about to play.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.